Mabel hadn't visited her elder sister May in months. Something in her heart told her this visit was overdue. As she climbed the steps to the porch, raised voices slipped through the thin door. "You will eat from the floor," snapped Tanisha, May's daughter-in-law. May's frail voice quivered. "Please, child, I can't." "If you don't," Tanisha hissed, "I'll slap you." Then came it, smack. Mabel's heart raced. She flung the door open and stepped inside. May sat trembling, hand to her cheek, while Tanisha loomed above her with cold eyes. Before Tanisha could even explain, crack! Mabel's palm struck her across the face. The room shook with silence. "Where I grew up, honey," Mabel said, her voice low and burning, "you never, never lay hands on an elder. You honor them. You respect them. Don't you dare forget that." May's tears spilled as she whispered, "Thank you, sister." But Mabel's warning didn't sit well with Tanisha. Shame turned quickly into rage. When Mabel wasn't looking, she slipped into the kitchen and picked up the phone. Moments later, Malik's voice echoed down the line. He was her husband, May's son, and he trusted his wife blindly. "Mabel is mistreating me," Tanisha cried into the receiver. "She came here, barged in, and struck me for no reason. I don't feel safe in this house." Malik didn't wait for more. He stormed out the office, told his secretary to reschedule his appointments, then he sped home, his heart pounding with anger. The front door slammed open. "What is going on here?" he demanded. His eyes blazed as they locked onto his aunt. "Aunt Mabel, I heard everything. You hit my wife? You need to apologize to Tanisha right now." May tried to rise from her chair, but her voice was weak. "Son, you don't understand. My sister saved me." Malik raised a hand, silencing her. His trust in Tanisha's words blinded him to the truth that hung heavy in the room. Mabel stood tall, her jaw set, unwilling to bow to a lie. Her eyes flicked between Malik and Tanisha, the weight of justice pressing on her shoulders. Malik's voice thundered through the house. "Aunt Mabel, I don't want to hear it. You helped to raise me, yes, but you don't get to put your hands on my wife. You crossed the line. Get out and apologize now." May clutched her chest, whispering, "Malik, listen." "Mabel saved me from your wife. She was abusing me." But Malik shook his head, his eyes hard. "Mama, please. I love you, but I won't let anyone disrespect my wife. Aunt Mabel needs to leave and apologizes now." The words pierced Mabel's heart. For a moment she considered shouting, fighting, making him hear the truth. But one look at Tanisha's smug smile told her words would do no good. Instead, Mabel inhaled deeply, masking her fury. She walked slowly to the sofa, pretending to steady herself on the armrest. With quiet hands, she slid a small recorder deep between the cushions, one she always carried to capture her thoughts and memories. Turning to Malik, her voice was calm but laced with sorrow. "I will leave, but I will not apologize to that wife of yours for defending my sister's honor. You don't want to hear me now, nephew. But the truth has a way of speaking louder than lies." She kissed May gently on the forehead, ignoring the sting of Malik's glare. Then she picked up her bag and walked out the door, her dignity intact. Inside, Tanisha smirked in triumph. But hidden in the sofa, the tiny recorder blinked silently. When Malik left for work, slamming the door behind him, Tanisha leaned against the wall and let out a victorious laugh. "Finally," she whispered to herself. "That old busybody Mabel is gone." May sat silently, her frail hands shaking in her lap. She wanted to scream, to tell her son the truth, but the moment had slipped away. Tanisha turned on her with venom in her eyes. She stepped closer and hissed, "You old hag. Did you really think Malik would listen to you or that meddling sister of yours? Malik is mine, my stupid blind provider. He'll believe whatever I tell him." May gasped softly, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Tanisha, please." "Shut up!" Tanisha snarled, then spat directly into May's face. "No one will ever believe you or your nosy sister." I always win. With a swift, cruel motion, she slapped May hard across the cheek. Before May could steady herself, Tanisha kicked the chair legs. The wooden chair toppled, and May's frail body hit the floor with a sickening crash. Her head struck the tiles, and blood began to ooze from the wound. For a moment, Tanisha froze. Then she straightened, her face twisting into cold calculation. Pathetic old woman, she muttered, and walked away, leaving May unconscious, bleeding, alone on the cold floor. But fate had other plans. Malik had forgotten his phone. As he stepped back inside, calling out, "Tanisha? Mama?" He froze in horror at the sight of his mother sprawled on the floor, blood pooling beneath her head. "Mama!" he screamed, rushing to her side. His hands trembled as he dialed for an ambulance, his voice breaking. "Please hurry, my mother's hurt. She's bleeding badly." The front door creaked. Tanisha reappeared, faking shock. "What happened?" she cried, rushing forward. Malik glared at her, panicked. "I don't know. I just came back and found her like this." Tanisha pressed her hand to her chest, her voice dripping with false pity. "Oh, Malik, she must have thrown herself on the floor. You know how dramatic your mother can be. She probably wanted to make it look like I hurt her. I think she is upset because you asked her sister to leave." Malik's eyes flickered with confusion, torn between his wife's words and the devastating sight of his mother. But in the sofa cushions, the tiny recorder, forgotten by Tanisha, had captured every cruel word, every insult, and the violence that had brought May to the floor. The truth was waiting. At the hospital, chaos surrounded the emergency ward. Nurses rushed in and out as May was wheeled into intensive care, her head wrapped in blood-stained gauze. Malik paced the corridor, his face pale with worry. The charge nurse, Angela, had been Mabel's and May's friend, who attends the same church for more than 20 years. Recognizing May's name, she quietly stepped aside and called Mabel. "Mabel!" Her voice was heavy with concern. "Your sister May was just admitted with a head injury. She's in serious condition. You need to come." Mabel's heart dropped. "What? How?" "There's no time," Angela said firmly. "Come now." With Malik's reluctant knowledge, she had done what she felt was right. Minutes later, the doors to the waiting area burst open. Mabel stormed in, her face flushed with fury and grief. Her eyes fell on Malik, who looked up in shock. "Aunt Mabel?" he stammered. Mabel pointed a trembling finger at him, her voice rising through the corridor. "How could you let this happen to your own mother? How could you trust that wicked wife of yours over blood?" Patients and visitors turned their heads at her outcry. Malik stiffened, glancing around, shame rising in his chest. "Auntie, calm down. You don't know the whole story." "I know enough," Mabel shouted, her voice breaking. "Tanisha has been hurting your mother, and now she is lying there fighting for her life because of abusive wife." At that moment, Tanisha walked into the ward, her face composed in a mask of concern. "What's going on here?" she asked sweetly, though her eyes flashed at the sight of Mabel. Malik stepped protectively toward his wife. "Auntie, that's enough. You're accusing without proof. Tanisha doesn't know what happened. She wasn't even in the room when Mama fell." Mabel's hands shook as she clutched her handbag to her chest. "Oh, Malik, you're blinded by her lies, and it may cost your mother her life." Malik's jaw tightened. His voice was stern, final. "Leave, Aunt Mabel. Please, you've done enough damage. We don't need more drama." Mabel stood frozen, torn between rage and heartbreak. She looked toward the ICU doors, whispering a prayer for May, then turned her gaze back to Malik. "You'll regret these words, son," she said quietly, her voice steady with conviction. "The truth always finds a way out. How dare you speak to me in that manner?" What Malik and Tanisha didn't know was that the truth was already waiting, tucked deep in the sofa at home, humming quietly in a recorder that had caught every vicious word and every cruel strike. The hospital's cold, sterile air lingered in Mabel's chest long after she left. Her heart pounded with anger, grief, and determination. Malik might have told her to leave, but she would not rest while her sister's life hung in the balance. Driving straight to May's house, Mabel pulled into the driveway, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. She remembered the small brass key her sister had pressed into her palm years ago, when Malik's dad passed away. In case of emergency, May had said. Tonight, it was an emergency of the gravest kind. The house was dark and still when she entered, but Mabel wasted no time. She walked straight to the living room, to the sofa where she had slid the recorder earlier. Dropping to her knees, she reached between the cushions and pulled it free. With her fingers shaking, she pressed play. At first, static filled the room. Then Tanisha's sharp, venomous voice cut through. "You old hag, you think Malik would listen to you and your stupid sister? I will always win. Malik is so stupid, he has no idea he's just my cash provider." Mabel's breath caught in her throat. Her worst fears confirmed, she clutched the recorder tighter, fighting the urge to smash it against the wall. The recording continued, chilling her to the bone. She heard a slap and a crash. May screamed she heard her kick the chair from under May with a hard crash. She fell on the floor. Mabel gasped, her eyes filling with tears. But it wasn't over. After a pause, another voice note played. Malik must have left by then, because she heard Tanisha dialing a number. "Baby," Tanisha whispered, her voice laced with triumph. "My plan is coming to fruition. I think the old hag will die this time. Once she's gone, I'll divorce Malik. Then you and I can finally be together. With all his money, he'll never see it coming." A low chuckle followed, then the faint voice of a man responding. "Good, babe. Keep me posted." The call ended. Mabel sat frozen, the recorder heavy in her palm, her heart pounding as if it would burst from her chest. It was worse than she ever imagined. Betrayal, cruelty, greed, and infidelity, all woven into Tanisha's scheme. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but through them anger burned. She whispered to herself, "God forgive me, but this ends tonight. Malik will hear the truth, even if it destroys him." Clutching the recorder like a weapon of justice, she stood. Tomorrow, there will be no more shadows, no more lies. Tomorrow she will pull the mask off Tanisha once and for all. Mabel's hands shook as she clutched the recorder, staring at it like it was both salvation and a curse. She couldn't carry this weight alone. With trembling fingers, she scrolled through her phone and dialed her son-in-law, Eric Washington, a respected police officer she trusted with her life. "Eric," her voice cracked. "It's Mabel. Something terrible has happened." Eric's tone immediately sharpened. "Calm down, Mama Mabel. Tell me everything." Between sobs, she poured out the events. Tanisha's lies, May's injuries, the cruel recording, and the phone call to her lover. Eric was quiet for a moment, processing the horror. Then, steady as steel, he said, "I'm out of town at a training conference, but don't you worry. Go straight to the police station. Ask for Officer Milton Green. He's solid. You can trust him. Give him the recording. I'll back it up when I return." Mabel wasted no time. Within the hour, she was at the precinct, sitting in a cold chair across from Officer Milton Green. A tall man with tired eyes, he leaned forward as she set the recorder on the desk and pressed play. As Tanisha's venomous words filled the office, the slaps, the insults, the plotting, Milton's face hardened. By the time her whispered call to her lover ended, he sat back in stunned silence, jaw clenched tight. "My God," he muttered, rubbing his temple. "Mrs. Johnson, this is beyond abuse. This is attempted murder." Mabel's hands twisted in her lap. "Officer Green, please. My sister's lying in the hospital. Tanisha can't be allowed to hurt her again." Milton straightened. his voice firm. "You did the right thing coming here. I'll take it from here." That night, Officer Green walked into the hospital with 2 uniformed police at his side. Malik sat in the waiting room, exhausted and confused, his head buried in his hands. He looked up, startled, as the officers strode past him. They went straight to May's hospital room, where Tanisha sat by the bed, faking concern while scrolling on her phone. "Mrs. Tanisha Johnson," Officer Green's voice cut through the room like a blade. She looked up, faking innocence. "Yes, officer. Is something wrong?" "You're under arrest for aggravated assault and attempted murder." Tanisha's eyes widened in shock as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "What? No, you've got it all wrong. She hurt herself. Malik!" she cried out as the officers pulled her up. Tell them I didn't do anything." Malik stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale. "Tanisha, what is going on?" But Officer Green wasn't finished. He glanced at Malik. "Mr. Johnson, we have evidence." "Solid evidence. Your mother's injuries were no accident. And your wife. She isn't who she pretends to be." Tanisha screamed as they led her away, spitting venom. "You'll regret this! You'll all regret this." The hospital halls echoed with her screams as she was dragged out. Mabel, who had arrived quietly behind the officers, stepped into the room and took her sister's hand. Tears of relief slid down her cheeks. "Hold on, May," she whispered. "Justice is finally coming." "Aunt Mabel, you are trying to destroy my life." She didn't flinch when Malik barked at her again, this time with more venom. She planted her feet, folded her arms, and let the memories steal her voice. "Boy, sit down now," she said, every syllable authoritative, the kind of voice that had calmed storms when he was a child. Malik hesitated, then sank onto a small chair, shame and confusion washing over him. Mabel stepped closer until she stood just a few feet from him, her eyes flared with anger. "Tell me this, Malik. Who took care of you when your daddy died?" "You did, Auntie," he said, voice small. "And when your mama worked nights, cleaning offices so you could stay in school, who made sure you had clothes and food?" She pressed on. "You did, Auntie," he repeated, the words tasting like regret. Mabel's jaw tightened. "Then don't you dare tell me to leave my own sister's side. Don't you ever tell me to go." Her hand hovered near her hip, not to strike, but to remind him of the consequence. "Boy, I can slap you into next week if you ever ask me to leave again." Malik bowed his head, the weight of her words crashing down on him. Guilt spooled across his face like a tide. At that moment, May stirred in the hospital bed. Her eyelids fluttered, and then, as if pulling herself up from a deep well, she opened her eyes. They were raw, weary, but bright enough to focus on Mabel's face. "Mabel?" May whispered, voice a fragile thread. "Is that you, baby?" Mabel's shoulders sagged, and for the first time that night, her voice melted. She stepped closer, took May's hand in both of hers, pressing it gently. "Yes, May. I'm here. I'm here." Tears slid down Malik's cheeks as he watched his mother recognize the woman who had always been the backbone of their family. Embarrassment, grief, and a dawning embarrassment in his expression, the beginnings of understanding that he'd been lied to and that the person he'd defended might have been the one who hurt his mama. May squeezed Mabel's hand weakly. "You came? You always come," she murmured. Mabel leaned down, resting her forehead briefly against May's knuckles. "Always," she answered. "And this time we're going to make sure the truth doesn't get buried." Around them, the sterile hum of the hospital seemed to slow, a fragile stillness after the storm. Malik rose slowly, voice hoarse. I am ready to listen to you, Auntie. I need to know what happened." Mabel nodded toward the small recorder in her coat pocket, the device that would split the house's lies open and force everyone to reckon. "Listen, she said simply. Then make your choice. Mabel pulled the recorder from her coat pocket, her eyes fixed on Malik. Without another word, she pressed play and set it on the table beside May's hospital bed. The room filled with Tanisha's venomous voice. You old hag! You think Malik would listen to you and your stupid sister? I will always win. Malik is so stupid. He has no idea he's just my cash provider. Malik's eyes widened, his breath hitching, his fist clenched. Then came the sound of a slap. May's trembling voice pleaded, Please don't, followed by the crash of her chair toppling. The sickening thud of her body hitting the floor made Malik flinch as though the blow had landed on him. Tanisha's cold laugh followed, then her heels clicking as she walked away. Malik's face crumpled. He buried his head in his hands, shaking before sliding to his knees on the cold hospital floor. Tears fell freely, hitting the tile beneath him. God, no! No! His voice cracked with anguish. Mama! Auntie! He pressed his forehead to his mother's hand, trembling like a child again. Forgive me. Please forgive me. I didn't listen. I let her hurt you. I let her poison my heart against you both. Mabel stood over him, her hand resting on his shoulder, firm yet trembling with her own emotion. She didn't gloat, didn't scold. She simply let him weep. May, weak but conscious, lifted her other hand and brushed her son's hair with trembling fingers. Her voice was hoarse but steady. Son, she whispered, you were blind, but now you see. I forgive you. A mother's love doesn't keep records of wrongs. Just don't let this lesson leave your soul. Malik clutched her hand tighter, his tears soaking the sheets. I promise, Mama. Never again. I'll protect you. I'll make this right. Mabel's eyes shone with tears, but her voice carried the weight of iron. Then stand up, Malik. Be the mama raised you to be. Your mama and I carried you this far. Now it's your turn to carry her. Malik rose slowly, wiping his face, his chest heaving with sobs, but his eyes, red, raw, repentant, now burned with clarity. For the first time in years, Malik truly saw who had been holding him together all along. The courthouse buzzed with tension. The case had spread beyond the neighborhood. A young wife accused of abusing her mother-in-law and plotting her death. Reporters lingered outside, waiting to capture the fall of Tanisha Johnson. Inside, Mabel sat on the front row beside Malik and May, who was recovering but still wore a bandage on her head. Malik gripped his mother's hand tightly, his jaw set as though each breath was an act of repentance. The double doors opened, and Tanisha was let in wearing an orange jumpsuit. Gone was her polished smile and carefully styled hair. She looked haggard, her eyes darting around the room for a lifeline. But there was none. Malik didn't so much as glance at her. When the trial began, the prosecution wasted no time. Officer Milton Green took the stand, confirming how he had arrested Tanisha and retrieved the evidence. Then came the moment that silenced the room, the recording. Tanisha's own voice filled the courtroom. You old hag! You think Malik would listen to you and your stupid sister? I will always win. Malik is so stupid. He's just my cash provider. The slap echoed, followed by May's weak cry for mercy and the crash of her fall. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Malik's shoulders shook as he lowered his head, his mother's hand resting gently on his arm to steady him. The recording continued, and Tanisha's voice sealed her fate. Baby, my plan is coming to fruition. I think the old hag will die this time. Once she's gone, I'll divorce Malik. Then you and I can finally be together, with all his money. He'll never see it coming. The gallery erupted. Even the judge banged his gavel for silence, his face etched with disapproval. Tanisha leapt from her seat, shouting, It's a lie! That was manipulated. They set me up. But her own words had already betrayed her. When it was Malik's turn to testify, he walked to the stand with tears in his eyes but a fire in his voice. I was blind, he told the jury. I thought my wife was loyal, but I see now she only saw me as a wallet. She nearly killed the woman who gave me life. She mocked the women who raised me. That's not a wife. That's a deceiver. The defense tried to argue stress, manipulation, even May's age and fragility. But the evidence was too damning. After days of testimony, the jury returned swiftly. The foreman stood, voice steady. On the charge of aggravated assault and attempted murder, we find the defendant, Tanisha Johnson, guilty. Tanisha screamed, collapsing into her chair as bailiffs restrained her. No! Malik, tell them I didn't mean it. Tell them you still love me. But Malik never turned his head. He held his mother's hand, his eyes fixed on the judge. The sentence was swift, 25 years to life in prison. As Tanisha was dragged away, her cries echoed through the chamber, but no one rose to comfort her. Outside, the sun blazed brightly. For the first time in years, Malik breathed deeply, free of the poisonous grip that had clouded his heart. Mabel placed a steady hand on his shoulder. The truth always rises, son. Always. May leaned on his arm, her frail smile brimming with quiet strength. Now we can heal. Malik nodded, his voice breaking. Yes, Mama. From today forward, I'll make it right. And as the courthouse doors closed behind them, Tanisha's chapter ended, not with triumph, but with downfall. 3 years later, the Johnson home no longer carried the shadows of Tanisha's cruelty. The walls had been repainted, the rooms filled with laughter instead of fear. Malik, now steadier and wiser, had stepped into the role of caretaker and protector, the son May always knew he could be. May, though scarred by her injury, had regained much of her strength. Every Sunday she sat proudly in her favorite church pew, her head held high, her spirit unbroken. Members of the congregation often whispered about her resilience, calling her a living testimony. Beside her, Mabel remained the family's anchor, sharp, outspoken, and unyielding in her love. Though her words could still cut like a whip, her heart beat with loyalty. She had not only defended her sister, but had also reclaimed the bond with Malik, now stronger than ever. Malik never missed a service, and when he wasn't at church, he was at May's side, reading to her, cooking her favorite meals, or simply sitting with her in the quiet evenings. The guilt of his blindness hadn't vanished, but he transformed it into fuel, to honor his mother and to repay the sacrifices both she and Mabel had made for him. One summer afternoon, the three of them sat on the porch as the sun dipped low. May rocked slowly in her chair, a quilt across her lap. Malik was on the steps, his head bent as he polished his father's old watch. Mabel stood near the railing, her eyes scanning the yard. Family, May whispered, her voice gentle yet firm, isn't about who pretends to love you. It's about who stands when the storm comes. Malik looked up, his eyes misting. Mama, I'll never forget again. I almost lost you because I trusted the wrong person. But you and Auntie, you're my roots, and I'll honor you both for the rest of my days. Mabel's lips curved into a rare, soft smile. That's all we ever wanted, son. For you to remember where you came from. The cicadas hummed in the trees, and for a long moment, the three simply sat in the peace they had fought to reclaim. Far away, behind prison walls, Tanisha's voice had long since faded from their lives. The venom, the lies, the betrayal, it was over. In its place remained love, hard-earned forgiveness, and the enduring strength of legacy. And as May closed her eyes to the warmth of the evening sun, she whispered a prayer of gratitude for her sister, for her son, and for the truth that had finally set them free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, let's meet in the comment. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. And if you've already subscribed, thank you. You're awesome. See you in the next one.